Greetings and welcome to another episode of I Survived Youth Group in the 90s. I'm your host, Scott, and with me as always is my out of this world co-host, Caleb. Caleb, did you miss the compliments?
I did. I feel better. I've been, I feel I'm ready to tackle the world tomorrow.
Are you good? Because you are out of this world, at least in terms of podcasting. So I'm glad you're here. Thank you. It's good to see you again.
I don't know where he came up with that one. You should have called me not of this world, and we could have had a nice little Petra reference, but
Oh
I'll take out
man,
of this
I'm
world.
off my game. Look at
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
I gotta flex my podcast muscles here a little bit. Oof. Well, we are back again to talk about the experience growing up as youth group kids in the 90s and how that has shaped our adult lives. We will talk to old friends about their faith journeys spanning from the 90s to today and discuss current cultural topics through the lens of people who grew up during that era. Caleb, tell us who we talking to today?
Yeah, today we had we've gone international. We had Chris from Canada who joined us. He got
Hmm.
connected with us through Church Jams Now, and he reached out to us, and we were able to sit down with him and talk about his experience of youth group in Canada.
Or youth, as he
Yes,
would say.
youth, as they
Yeah,
as he referenced it.
as
Yes.
I would say in Toronto or close to Toronto. No, Chris was great to talk to. I think he was really intentional with his answers and his thoughtfulness and his questions again, which we run into a lot when we broach this topic because I think people want to be intentional with this experience and their memories. But man, he loved music just like we did. He was pretty deeply involved, just like we were, although from the what Pentecostal tradition, correct?
Yep. Yep. Yeah.
So,
Pentecostal and some different aspects. Again, we that's what we continue to find, right? Like really similar and yet just slightly different. It's
yeah.
it's kind of consistently amazing how we seem to continue to find that in
Yeah.
so many ways.
Different flavors, especially in Canada.
Yeah.
So you get Canadian flavors of youth group this time, and you'll find that it's not super different, but a little bit. Chris was really great with some of his stories, particularly about, running people over with trucks and also preview. And also, I really enjoyed his story about him being like, a self-avowed introvert, and you can kind of maybe kind of tell from his cadence and his answers that that's how he is. But also, he would say that when he went to youth group, a kind of different Chris came out,
Yeah.
and he was a little bit more, he was more extroverted, he was more out there and engaged, and something in that experience brought out that person in him, and that was really cool for him to describe that.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I will say, like, my favorite reference from it was the a reference to a book that came out in 1988 that I'm not going to spoil. By far and away, the that was such an interesting aspect, and it really
Yep.
that book. It was funny. I'll fully admit it was kind of a funny reference, but it was also really interesting how impactful it was and how much it's actually impacted his faith journey and some of the things he wants out of faith now or doesn't
Hmm.
want out of faith now, which I thought was really interesting.
Hmm. Yeah, that was something I was not ready for. And then we looked at the book title. I'm like, wow, I'll put this on the list. This looks great. So great recommendation, Chris. And we really appreciate you jumping on with us and sharing that story. It's something that we've missed. I hope as the audience you've missed it too. And it kind of gets us back on track with talking about youth group experiences here. So, Chris, thank you very much for joining us. And to everyone else out there, we hope you enjoy.
Okay, I think you should do that ending again because the book reference that came out in 88 is the 88 Reasons Jesus is Coming Back in 88. And I don't think you necessarily think that's a great book
Nope,
reference
I did
because you
not
were
think
thinking
that.
about his,
The other guy.
yeah, the other guy.
Yeah.
So you might want to follow up my joke about like, because what I found interesting about that is he was so afraid of hell. And that was like such, like that whole, like the end of the world,
Yeah.
like played into his. So
Fair
just my
enough. Good
thought is
call.
you might want
Good
to not
call.
recommend that book.
Okay. Fine. I'm out of practice. You're such a podcast perfectionist.
Well,
You
I
snob.
just
You
figured
snob.
we should clarify.
Right. All right.
So,
Fine.
all
Count me
right.
back in.
Yeah, so I just mentioned I thought that book was interesting, how much it impacted his
Yep.
faith and kind of his journey. And three, two, one.
Yeah, you're right. That was a really interesting and funny, frankly, looking back on it, topic that he brought up. But, I think something that a lot of people can identify with because what he talked about was, and it still happens today, right? It still
Yeah.
happens today, but that experience really both weaves in and out and throughout the entire podcast. And once he kind of explains it, you kind of understand, like, oh, yeah, okay, so that stayed with him for quite a long time. And it was definitely part of his youth experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Chris, thank you very much for jumping on the show and joining us. We really appreciated that story, and we missed it, and we hope the audience out there has missed those stories too, and are excited to start to hear some more. So, thanks very much for listening, and we hope you enjoy.
I want to break in and quickly remind everyone that the views and opinions expressed on this episode of I Survived Youth Group in the 90s may not be held by or even approved of by everyone appearing on this episode. One of the goals of this show is to give everyone a safe space to share their opinions and thoughts on deeply personal matters of faith. We are not looking to start an argument, but instead we want to let people share how they feel. During our interviews and discussions, we may not represent every point of view on a given subject, and we understand that this may be frustrating at times, but it is the nature of a podcast discussion with a limited amount of time. We also know and want to acknowledge that our memories of events that happened 25 to 30 years ago may not be 100% accurate. We assume everyone's best intentions as they share how they remember the experience of their youth. Now, back to the show.
Today, we are joined by our new friend, Chris. Chris, thank you for reaching out and joining us here this evening. How are you doing? Nice to meet you.
Yeah, well, nice to meet you guys too. I'm doing well, thanks. Yeah, I appreciate you having me on. So I look forward to some questions.
Excellent, excellent. Well, we look forward to your story. To be honest with you and whatever audience we may have left, it's been a little while since we have done a podcast interview, so we might be kind of rough around the edges, but I think it's going to come back pretty quickly, just like riding a bike. So anyway, we started from the beginning, and we won't change that. Chris, tell us, I know you were in youth group a few years earlier than us, but it was definitely still in the 90s. Where, when, how, why did you attend youth group when you were a teenager?
Wait, hold on. How?
Yeah.
Like, how did he attend youth group? Like,
I don't know.
Did he do it over
Again,
Zoom?
I told you I'm rusty. I'm rusty.
He probably went
Usually
to a
my
building.
parents drove me, but when I got older,
There you go.
I drove. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. I went to youth group. I guess the why, like I grew up in a church, and I had been going to that church since I was probably like 5 years old. And it kind of seemed like the natural thing to do after, when I became a teenager.
Mm-hmm.
My parents also were very adamant that I went. And yeah, so really, mostly it was my parents kind of getting me to go. I also had like lifelong friends at the church. So I think that was also a big thing, like just having people I already knew there. So I felt comfortable. And I already knew the youth pastor. Yeah, just being at the church. And that's basically the why. Where I went to church, and I went to youth group north of Toronto, about 45 minutes north of Toronto. Not super exciting, just kind of a suburb of Toronto, but yeah.
Caleb, is this the first Canadian youth group experience we've had on the show? Check the notes.
Hold on. Let me pull out my files. Yes, this is our first person north of the border. Now, we've been close. So we had some
Yeah, I've been close.
upstate New York, right? Pete was upstate New York. So that's as close as we've come. Well, and we're fairly close to...
Yeah,
we're fairly close to Canada.
Great. Well, we've expanded, not just USA Youth Group, and not just in the 90s, because we've had other interviews that are not 90s Youth Group. But Chris, you were squarely in the 90s, right? Like you said, like 92-ish.
92 to 97, really, kind of like my high school years.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what kind of church was it that you were going to youth group in?
Yeah, great question. It was a Pentecostal church. I would say pretty fundamentalist, but not as charismatic as some, but really like there were some rules you had to follow, or I felt like I had to follow anyways. And yeah, so Pentecostal, part of the PAOC, Pentecostal Assemblies of Canada, which I think is kind of associated with the Assemblies of God down in the States.
Okay.
So yeah, so kind of that kind of church.
What? So not like, if I'm going to guess a little bit, not super heavy on some of the speaking in tongues stuff?
My church, yeah, great question. My church, we did occasionally. We always had a few people that would do it every once in a while, and we always had
Mhm.
kind of the same interpreter. Yeah, so there was some speaking in tongues. I mean, when I went to more camp meetings, like I went to camp most summers and I went to conventions and retreats, that's when kind of that more charismatic side came out because I was with multiple churches at the time, like multiple Pentecostal Assembly of Canada
Oh,
churches,
sure,
and that
sure.
was we were less on the charismatic side, but still, I would say charismatic for sure. Like,
Sure. Squarely in the camp, but yeah.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
It's a good time to remind Chris, if you haven't listened to it or the listeners haven't listened to it, I don't know how long ago it was. If you go back and you search for the Josh L episode, I was really surprised by that interview because we didn't, kind of similar here. We didn't know the guy and he came out pretty strong, charismatic, but like just like confident and really cool about it. And we learned a lot in that conversation because I've dabbled a little bit here or there, but not fully immersed like you guys. So it's not a wildly different strain, but just a lot of different activities, let's say. So I'm kind of interested to see how that fleshes out in your story.
Yeah, I am not Pentecostal at all anymore, but
Mm,
yeah, definitely like growing up, like that was what I was used to. And like I would say until I had youth group, like I was squarely in the Pentecostal camp.
sure.
I would even say like, and this is perhaps my view of things. I don't want to like paint everyone like this, but I felt like we were like the Christians. You know what I mean? Like
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
we were more Christians than Baptists, and like I do not think that anymore. I want to be very clear on that. But that's
Hmm.
kind of the impression that I got. You know, like growing up in that church is or in that kind of denomination. And again, I don't want to paint everyone with that kind of brush, and I don't. Perhaps just that's the feeling I got, but again,
Yeah.
that's kind of how I felt.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's something that a lot of us kind of grow out of because I mean, Caleb, for sure that has been a common theme for many guests, including guests from our own youth group and including Caleb and myself is like we said very early on that we were taught we were supposed to go proselytize to the Lutherans. And I think one of our friends texted us and said, "Yeah, when I went back home, I was told I was supposed to go try and convert the Baptists." It's like, what are we doing? So I think there was a lot of that. So it's happening in Canada. It was happening in the United States. It was just part of the streams we were in at that time is get people into our camp kind of thing. So
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah.
interesting. Now, what about your like home upbringing? Was it also charismatic, or does that just happen to be the church that you all went to?
Yeah, just to give you some background information, my parents were hippies back in the 60s, traveling around Europe.
Nice.
My mom was Canadian, and well, is still Canadian, and my dad is actually British from England, and they just met traveling. Now, my mom, going back a bit further, she grew up in like a fundamentalist, I would say, kind of fundamentalist Pentecostal church, 10 brothers and sisters, so a big family,
Ooh.
poor. Her dad definitely, like my grandfather, definitely had mental health issues and kind of left the family kind of midstream. So like the
Hmm.
10 brothers and sisters kind of had to look after themselves. Anyways, they're traveling like through Europe, going back to the story, and they met randomly in Greece. My parents don't really talk too much about it because I don't think they were doing a lot of legal things back then. I mean, they did tell me stories about selling their blood to kind of survive.
Whoa.
Yeah, it was the 60s, I think, and they were just kind of my mom had just graduated university. My dad was just, I don't know, he was just a bunch of friends traveling Europe
Hmm.
as they do. And anyways, they met in Greece, as I said, and I guess one thing led to another, and my dad eventually immigrated over to Canada. And anyway, so I was born, and my parents weren't Christians. Like my mom had that background. I just gave you that quick
Hmm.
background on that. So my mom decided when I was about 5 years old to send me to Sunday school. And so sent me to Sunday school, and eventually she just decided to start going herself. She got, I guess you call it, saved, and then my dad started to go as well, and he got saved as well. And then
Hmm.
I don't know, like I don't think that was the church I was exactly raised in, but then like maybe like a year after they started going to church, they started going to this Pentecostal church
Hmm.
in my hometown. They kind of really took to it. I guess my mom kind of wanted that background, like she had that kind of growing up, and my dad, I don't know, my
Hmm.
dad did not grow up in a religious household at all. And
Hmm.
England is fairly secular. I mean, it's not as secular as some European countries, but pretty secular. And anyways, they just took right to it. ever since then, like we were church twice a week. I know some people go to church, but anyways, church twice a week, Sunday morning, Sunday evenings, and that was like it, right? Like we never missed church. And so that's a little bit of background on like my Christian home, and and my parents really took to it. Later on, like when I was in high school, they actually left the church because it wasn't charismatic enough. And yeah, they started going like the Toronto Blessing. I don't know if you heard of that, like there was a big like a revival, air quotes, in Toronto that was pretty famous, actually, like a lot of like very, very charismatic. The Toronto airport, it was near the Toronto airport anyways. So they actually kind of like went beyond the Pentecostal like charismatic movement and went to like some of the other pretty charismatic speakers. Like they went to see a lot of, I don't know, like revivalists and things like that. But I kind of remained back in the Pentecostal church at this point. So that's a little bit of background on kind of my household and like what I grew up like. Yeah, always very Christian from what I can remember. Like I don't remember much before I was 5. So
Sure. Yeah. So you had a base to work with, and it was supportive, right? Like you weren't going to church on your own per se. Like, I mean, you were, but also your parents were into it and supportive of it.
Oh yeah, 100%. Like they were, yeah, really into it. Yeah, I went along with it. And that, again, as I said, like I had lots of friends growing up in the church, like still like lifelong friends, and I'm still friends with these people to this day, which is awesome. Like some of my best friends are people that I met at this church like 40 years ago, literally. So yeah.
I wonder what's that's like. That must be nice. That was the Caleb dig.
I'm not your friend anymore.
Yeah, we're not friends. We're just co-hosts. But yeah, that's a common theme too, is that these youth groups tended to have the capacity to bring people together and form lifelong relationships, which is not all that common for, middle school, high school age kids. That for some reason it was happening at least back in the day back then. So take us to where you were at, like in the 90s in high school, early 90s to mid. What was your faith like? How would you what are some words you used to describe your faith during the 90s youth group time?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I went to church. I would say like I was saved, if that's the word I would use. I always had a little bit of doubt, but at the same time, like growing up in the church that I did, there was a lot of talk of like hell and like, are you really saved? And I remember like that's a bit of trauma I still have to this day of like stuff like that. Just like I remember like going to bed at night just worrying like, like am I going to hell, or am I going to make it to heaven? Things like that. So that was kind of a rough point. And I would say that's a little bit pre-teen. Like I was probably between 10 and 12 at that point. Eventually, like I did start going to youth group, and yeah, like I think I tried. I tried to read my Bible. I tried to pray consistently. I tried to believe in, what was taught to me. And I was brought up in a pretty sheltered home. Like I did go to public school, but again, I still like there's a lot of things I wasn't able to do because of our faith. And so I would say like I kind of got, I don't know if the word grandfathered into it, but like I just kind of, because I was brought up in it, and because this is all I really knew. This is kind of what I believed, or at least tried to believe, because I had that fear of kind of like where I'd go after I die, and like the rapture was a big thing back there. I remember like 88 reasons why God is coming back, or Jesus is coming back in 88. I remember that, like anyways, just crazy stuff. And like it honestly freaked me out. So I don't know, maybe I was like saved because of fear, or wanted to be saved because of fear. But that was like a big theme, I think, kind of, my preteen years was like, oh man, am I going to heaven, or what's going on here? And yeah.
Did that change for you once you maybe got a little bit older, like 15, 16, 17? Did that go away at all, or did it just kind of manifest into something else?
I would say then I was a little more distracted. Like I had a lot more things going on. So although still kind of that fear was still there, I would say like, because I really found like a really good social group at the church that I went to, like in my youth group, I found a really good social group, and like there was activities happening all the time. And the emphasis I found was not so much on being saved, but are you like, baptized in the Holy Spirit, right? Like, are you? Yes. And that was kind of a big emphasis when I was a bit older. So that was kind of more of where I was a little bit more in my teenage years. I was also a pretty anxious kid. I still am a little bit anxious, but I was still a pretty anxious kid. Like I had a big worry about like what's going to happen in the future, like what job would I have, what would I do, would I ever like meet a girl, like all these kind of things that were just like floating in space and just like things that you wonder when you're young, I think.
Yeah, pretty standard teenage anxiety topics, I guess. I mean,
Yeah.
and youth group, I think we've talked about this a little bit, but like youth group was kind of a magical place in some regards, but it didn't take away any of those fears, right? Or it didn't take away any of those misgivings about what the future might hold, which is fine. It's not necessarily supposed to, but we were never immune from that, let's say, no matter how sheltered we might have been. You had mentioned some rules that you said you thought you had to follow, and maybe some of those restricted some behavior, like in a public setting or public school. What do you remember? What those rules were that you had to follow?
Yeah, like the simple ones like no swearing, and still kind of follow
Same.
that one to this day just because I just don't. Yeah, I just never grew up doing it. So, like no swearing and like the pretty typical stuff, like making sure you go to church every Sunday. Even my parents still to this day, like when I'm on the phone, they're making sure that I'm going to church, even though I live like 2 hours away from them. But it's just like, some of these rules that show that you're a Christian, right? Like, I don't know.
Okay, so like behavior rules specifically.
Yeah, for sure. Like, are you doing this and not doing this, right? Like,
Yeah, so similar to us, we've definitely felt like there's some behavioral modification that we need to abide by for sure. The youth group itself, the people you were involved with, youth leaders, that sort of thing, your friends, what are some of your most vivid memories that you still draw upon that you remember very fondly? And what are maybe some teaching moments that still stick with you to this day?
like when I first started there, I had this really amazing youth pastor, actually youth pastor that actually went down to school in Texas and then came back. He was Canadian, but wanted to go down to the States and do his Bible college there. And he was just an amazing guy, really good humor. And I always connect with people that are funny. I don't know. I try to be funny myself, but I usually fail. But like he was just really funny, and I really could connect with him. And I remember like the first year I went to youth group, he invited me to this thing called Firehouse, which was like for like youth leaders. And I was only like grade 9. I was like one of the youngest people in the youth group. And I thought that was just, I don't know, crazy that he would invite me, who has really no experience in youth, but wanted me to be like a leader, which I thought was just phenomenal. And I remember going to that, and I remember people praying over me there, like just for my future and things. And that was kind of like a real eye opener. And that was kind of more of a charismatic thing. Like I really saw the charismatic part or side of the PAOC. Like a lot of people, I don't know, I don't remember if they're falling over, but that charismatic type of thing, like services that go on for hours and worship services just kept going and things like that. That was amazing. It was interesting anyways, I'll say that. But it was just great to get to know, like he invited one of my other good friends who was also the same age as me. So it was good to go and hang out with him as well at this thing. There's only probably about 20 of us that went to this like youth leadership called Firehouse. Another really big instance that kind of like was really big for me was summer after grade 9. I actually was in an accident. My parents made me work for their business after I started high school. My dad was an HVAC, like heating air conditioning contractor.
Sure.
So I went and worked with him. And honestly, like I was really thankful. Like to this day, I'm thankful because my dad is a super hard worker and really showed me how to work hard as well. But anyways, I was on the job site, and long story short, I lost my thumb. It got ripped off in a machine.
Whoa.
And so I had to spend some time in Sick Kids, which is Toronto Sick Kids, which is one of the biggest children's hospital in Canada. And I remember, so I just started, like I was just a youth for about a year, but I remember when I was in the hospital, I got all these like cards and the notes from like people in the youth group, just like, showing that they cared. And I remember that I broke down because of like just the love and like the care that people showed. So I really felt a connection. Like that was a huge thing I learned about like looking out for others. And I'll never forget that, like just opening up this big package of people put stuff together for me while I was only in the hospital for like a week. It wasn't like a major thing, but still, like being a 15-year-old kid and kind of losing a limb it was tough. But yeah, just knowing that people were there, and it just made that, like, I guess that life transition or whatever you want to call it, like a much easier, and just knowing that people loved you and that they cared for you. So yeah, that was another really big kind of big thing that I learned in youth.
You had some community support during a difficult time. That's good. The people
Yeah.
showed up for you.
Yeah, they absolutely did. And like I remember like youth leaders would come to my house after and we would just like hang out, play whatever ping pong or
Hmm.
whatever. And yeah, it was really it showed that people cared and that they loved you and it just felt, like you felt that really that sense of community, I think. That I still cling to this day. Like just feeling community is just makes me feel whole, I guess yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a overarching need for everyone, and youth group did it pretty well for the most part. We have heard some stories where there was kind of big cliques, and it was more difficult for people to have it, depending on where they were at and that sort of thing. But overall, in general, these stories tell us that youth group is trying to do something to establish community for teenagers when they need it most. And that's really important. Intention, whatever their intentions are, otherwise spiritually or not, it's the community aspect really drives most of the activity, and it works. And it worked in the past, and it still works today. I'm literally recording in our church building in Minneapolis, and my son is downstairs at youth group right now. we drive 25 minutes to bring him here because he likes the community. So
Yeah, like absolutely. Yeah, I think it's so important to find community and like every place that I've gone, I look for that, right? And just
mhm.
to feel like a sense of belonging and people that have similar like beliefs and understandings as you do.
Sure.
And I think that's why I've always been kind of attracted. Like I think it started in maybe like even my younger years, but in youth group for sure. Like I found that community. And I will say like my youth group was not perfect. I did not treat everyone super well, to be honest. Like there was kind of those cliques or whatever, but at the same time, like yeah, I mean
Hmm.
it wasn't perfect.
We're teenagers too, right? We're gonna act like teenagers, and that happens.
Yeah,
That's part
yeah,
of teenage experience
yeah,
for sure.
yeah.
What about youth group after or church after high school? Were you involved? Did you stay connected, or you just say peace out? I'm see you guys later. Like, how was your involvement after you graduated?
Yeah, after I graduated, I did kind of go back every once in a while. Like I went off to university and I went to a university about 2 hours away from my house, so it wasn't really
Hmm.
accessible. I did when I came back on weekends, I usually went for like maybe my first year. It was a bit awkward because I was like, now I'm in university, right? It's a little bit, I
You're
kind of moved
old.
on.
Yeah.
I'm old, yeah,
Yeah.
and like, and I remember when I was going to youth, like when I was like a teenager, right? Like those years in high school and seeing people come back and I'm like, oh, what are they doing? But at the same time, like again, I felt that community and like I had friends there still because I had a lot of like that's one thing about my youth group is that like I was kind of friends across age groups. Like I had friends that were even like 5 years younger than me and we'd just
Hmm.
hang out. So that was good. And when I went off to university also I found InterVarsity Christian Fellowship, which was
Sure.
I think you have in the States too.
Yep.
Yeah. So I had that InterVarsity and I found it was a tough start for me. I'm kind of an introvert, and so it's kind of hard starting off. And so I again found that community as well in the InterVarsity Christian Fellowship there, which was less of a charismatic thing and more of a intellectual thing, which I really appreciated. And also like seeing people from other faiths, or not other faiths, sorry, other denominations. And I think that was really good for me, seeing that yes, even though they don't go to my denomination, they can still be like believers and and still
You're on
have
this.
the same level of faith. Yeah,
You're on the same team.
as, a, as the same team. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. I was part of university at my college too, and it was. I like how you said it was a little. It was a little more intellectual driven, which is true. We had like FCA, and we didn't have Campus Crusade, but I know Caleb was part of Campus Crusade, so those things were functioning all over the place. But it's good to, especially if you were a little bit more sheltered in high school, burst that bubble a little bit, figure out that the Baptists or the Lutherans, they're not. We're all trying to, pursue the same thing. We're all on the same team. And that really doesn't happen unless you kind of get out there a little bit.
yeah. And I appreciated that. And I also I did not purposely go. Well, I did go a little bit to a Pentecostal church, but I stopped going to one and just kind of go to a Mennonite church, which I really
Hmm.
also kind of enjoyed. Again, a bit of a different style, but yeah. So again, it was about finding community. And I when I was in university, I also volunteered a little bit for Youth for Christ. I think that's what, yeah, Youth
Oh,
for
sure.
Christ. I don't know if you have that in the States. I think you do.
Yeah.
But I volunteered like kind of a drop-in center for youth. So I did still kind of remain active in that area
Hmm.
a little bit here and there. going back, like again, I still had my friends, and I had still a bunch of friends in youth group while I was at school, and even like because I had kind of a tough start in university, kind of like acclimatizing or whatever word you want to use, like making friends, making connections. It was nice to know I had that really solid group of friends back at my church, at my youth group, and that I could kind of depend on them, and just that I've had that
Who knew
that
you and
community
you
still.
trusted, you could be yourself around, that sort of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah,
Yeah, there you go. To kind of keeping you grounded a little bit, even though you were 2 hours away.
yeah.
Another thing youth group can do pretty well, frankly.
Mhm.
Do you have kids that are of youth group age now, or are they younger, or are you planning on getting them involved in a youth group at all?
Yeah, good question. So I have been going to church at a very local church, or a really local place near me, which is like a 5 minute drive. And so I live in a much smaller community now than what I
Mm-hmm.
lived in before. And so my daughter is now in grade 6, so she can start going to youth. So I've been sending her to youth.
Mm-hmm.
And this is her first year actually. And again, the reason why is I kind of hope that she makes those connections that I did, right?
Mm.
Like she finds that group and finds those friends. I have to admit that I have gone to a few churches before this. It wasn't like me growing up, like when I just went to one single church until, till adulthood, really. Whereas she's gone to a couple just because of situations at different churches. But again, I've decided to kind of plant my roots in the church that I'm at now.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, she's been going to church. She's been going to youth group starting this year. So again, I just hope that she kind of gets the same thing out of it that I got out of it
Interesting.
growing up.
Interesting.
Hmm.
Do you tell her any stories about how youth group was for you? Like in the car, you like your dad was in sixth grade.
You know what? Honestly, yeah, I saw that question, and I don't really say a lot about it, to be honest with you. Even to my wife, like I don't really talk a lot about my youth group days. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know. It's just something that doesn't really come up too much.
Sure.
Like when I was in high school and stuff, I mean, I went to high school to survive, to be honest. And like
Mm-hmm.
my friends and all my community was at the church. So my wife was not very much like that. She was kind of the opposite. She had her friends at school, and she wasn't actually she's actually Jewish, so she didn't go to church.
Mm-hmm.
Again, we don't really talk about it too much, and I don't really talk about it with my family a lot, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
But it definitely played a really important part of my life, and maybe as she gets older, maybe I can relate some of my stories from those days to her. But
Sure.
yeah,
Look out for some of the similarities that might be happening still, because again,
yeah,
they're still the same things are still happening that they were 30 years ago. They're playing basketball. I mean, I'm just speaking as a dad in the church of an actual youth group happening. I can hear them. You probably can't, but I can hear them. They're playing basketball. They're playing kickball. They're having prayer time. They're having teaching time, worship time, all that kind of stuff. It's the playbook hasn't changed very much. So yeah, be on the lookout for the things that might be the same.
for sure, for
So,
sure.
well, overall, to wrap up your youth time, like just overall, what did you love about your youth group experience, and why do you love it so much?
Again, I go back to community, and some of the things I really liked about youth group were like the trips. Like we did a youth retreat every fall, and just going there with our youth group and just kind of getting away from whatever parents, and just you know services for sure, but also like just having a good time with friends and just being kind of on your own, right? Getting that independence. Love that part of it. I also really enjoyed. We had youth convention in the spring, where we go to like a university a couple hours away, and again, I love this one especially because I got to meet people from all over like Eastern Ontario. Or I guess our area was like Eastern Ontario and Quebec. Really, Quebec was just Montreal because that's where they speak English.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, just meeting people there. And I remember like I'm very introverted, but I found myself being very extroverted there and trying to meet people and just like making connections. So I made a bunch of connections with people from Toronto, people from like east of us. And it was just really good to make those connections. Now back then there was really no email or anything like that back
Mm-hmm.
in the mid 90s, but I remember we did a lot of letter writing, and this
Sure.
is a part where I kind of like find interest in girls and stuff, and like you just go try to meet girls. Like that was a
Mm-hmm.
great part of youth group too, especially you met girls that had the same foundation or same beliefs as you did, and that was always a fun thing to do. Like yeah, going to conventions and meeting
Mm-hmm.
people from like all over the province, even going to like and every summer we go to camp on Lake Ontario, and it was the best time. That was probably the highlight of the year for me. Me and my friend Tom, we would go and like try to meet as many people as possible and just like be really social. And that was really the opposite of me at high school. Like I was a really quiet guy. I just kind of I had friends, but like I was just really introverted there. But like I felt like a kind of a new or kind of a different person, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
While I was there at camp, it was just a phenomenal time. I was looking through pictures actually before I got on here and just like thinking about some memories and just meeting people from all over and, trying to keep in contact with them. And yeah, it was just really fun. Like we did some crazy games. I remember one time we had this truck pull. So there's this pickup truck. It was part of the games there. And anyways, you had to pull this pickup truck, like get a bunch of people with ropes attached to the pickup truck and just pull it. We'd pull it around like this field and just crazy. And I remember one time, so I shouldn't be laughing at this, but people got ran over by it. Now, there's no motor. It wasn't that heavy, but still, like, we had to send a few people to the hospital. I think that was the last time they actually did that activity. But just like crazy games. I remember one time, so this is when like MXPX was huge and like Chick Magnet just came out. And I remember like riding this, like one of those banana bikes, the big handlebars and stuff, like riding a banana bike to Chick Magnet down like the center stage of the camp hall, and then it's dancing up on stage, which is something I would never do at like in a high school setting. But I don't know, I felt like that freedom to just be who I really was. And I don't know, I just like some of my best memories are from those weeks I spent at camp and just doing this crazy stuff and having like a really good time. At the same time, I will say, like, there were services twice a day, and being a Pentecostal camp, we had to have altar calls all the time, and that I did not appreciate. Like a lot of pressure there to like whatever, speak in tongues or I don't know, be baptized in the Holy Spirit was a really big push. So like that stuff didn't super enjoy, to be honest with you. I felt it was, I don't know, stressful, but it just wasn't something that I just did not really. Sometimes even I shouldn't say this, but I sometimes skip services just because I did not enjoy that part. But again, just the freedom to be myself, I think, was really important for me because I didn't really feel that a lot in high school, to be honest. But just being someone, just to go.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people treated the Christian conventions as like Christian mingle before there was the internet. Like there's like, oh, here we go. We're going to find someone. I'm going to write them letters for a few years. But
that's what I did.
It's interesting you talk about how youth group was able to kind of, let's say, if I'm misrepresenting, I apologize, but bring you out of your shell. Like high school kind of kept you there and it was less comfortable. But in that youth group experience, at least it sounds like you were kind of a different person in a way. Like you felt like you were able to express yourself and be more of yourself. Not necessarily have more fun. Maybe it was just a different kind of fun, but I think that speaks back to the community. You're building relationships where that's based on trust. And sometimes in a youth group setting, that trust is broken or violated. But other times it's not, and people can continue to feel like they can just live outside themselves and bust out of that shell that otherwise they're kept in by when they're not in youth group. And it's a really interesting dynamic that maybe only youth group gives us because of the setup and the craziness and, like you said, the games and everything. And just trying to let kids have a good time all at the same time.
Good time, but also like safe, right? Like it was
safe, yes.
I think that's one of the reasons my parents wanted me to go, and like you knew there'd be no drinking there, right? You knew that you'd be like they didn't have to worry about me, I think was one of the big things.
Good call on it being safe.
But you know what, like I will say, like I had the best, like it was just for those moments, like just great memories. I remember looking forward to it all year until like especially that summer camp. I remember just like just having such a fun time and just you'd have so many people and just it was great.
Well, clearly a big impact for you 35 years ago. Bring us forward to today. What does your faith look like now? How does it compare, and what's stay the same? What's different? How has that affected your life up until this point?
I still really struggle on like what my beliefs are. I still go to church. I don't know if it's my parents like really kind of still asking me about it or what, or the guilt that maybe I might have. But I mean, I still get stuff out of it, especially like I like the intellectual stuff. I like the sermons that are really get. I don't like surfacey sermons. I don't like emotional stuff. Like I don't buy into that really, but I do like the intellectual stuff. I have my doubts for sure. It's an interesting road. I still teach Sunday school once a month. I feel like I need to give back to church. Like I need to give back. My kids go there too, so I feel it's important that I do that. And I still help out with VBS. I do like the science part of VBS, which I have a blast doing, just like getting kids to do fun and sometimes not so safe science experiments and stuff. And
youth group was safe, and now you're not making it safe, Chris.
I find sometimes the more dangerous that things are, sometimes the more buy-in you get, or pretend to make it dangerous anyways. Right. Yeah. So my faith, it's an interesting road. I feel like I've got some trauma still from like even my preteen years of like the stuff talked about hell and like, so that kind of stuff is still like, I don't know what the word haunt is, not the right word, but it still is kind of with me and always kind of like in the back of my mind, which I'm working through. One thing I don't want my kids to go through is that fear. Cause I still, again, like, I don't want them to go that fear of like of that maybe not real, but of that, I don't know what the word is, but
like they have a conviction, but it's not like placed in certainty or anything. Like we were always taught, and Caleb is like the one, of course, who like never struggled with this, but a lot of people as growing up at youth group, these similar circles in the 90s had the same reaction. Am I saved? I'm trying my best. I made a decision to follow Christ. I keep screwing up. Does that mean I'm going to hell, kind of thing? And maybe that's just a function of we just don't actually fully understand the full teaching or theology behind grace and how audacious it frankly is. But at the end of the day, it's not an uncommon thing for people to second guess themselves in that regard. And whether you had made a decision or not, the threat of hell is very, very threatening. Very threatening. So, especially as a young kid.
Yeah. I still struggle with it sometimes, and like, is definitely something that's still with me I'm in my mid 40s now, right? So
what are the reasons you think things have changed a little bit, matured a little bit? You're still involved, obviously, and we talked about sending your daughter to a youth group still, maybe while having some, still some reservations there. But as you've grown up, like, can you point to a certain event or a certain life stage or something that happened that made you kind of maybe second guess or question what happened, what was happening back in the 90s?
I think like every stage of life, I kind of evolve or develop, or whatever word you want to use. Like going to university kind of opened my eyes to like, as I said, like different denominations, and like seeing that these people, yes, they love Jesus too, just as much as we do. And honestly, like, and then going into the working world, like working with mostly unbelievers or whatever you want to call those people, and like, and just being more open. Like I work with like people of all faiths now, right? Like I work with people of all faiths, and just kind of keep an open mind and like, and having good discussions with them. And I think that also kind of has influenced what I believe, and just not to see the world so black and white, I think, anymore, and not thinking that I have all the answers, because I 100% don't. And I still a lot of stuff. And to be honest, like there's been some church stuff, could have swore there, but there's been some church stuff that is just like, it's been really tough. Like I left my last church because of one of the biggest reasons, because like it was all over the news, at least in Canada anyways. Like it got like he had like an affair and accused of sexual assault, right? And like, how's a leader of this church supposed to be serving God, and all of a sudden like just all this crap that's happening, and like people like like basically destroyed a whole, like I don't want to mega church or whatever, but just destroyed like a whole like community of believers because of a selfish act. And that really bothered me. And I know it's not only happening here. I know it happens a lot in a lot of different Christian communities as well. Like, and I understand that we're not perfect, and that we make mistakes, but some of these mistakes have real ramifications, right? And like, you respect someone and listen to them, and like but they're living kind of a double life, and that, like what do they really believe, or what do they really, if they are doing this as well. And again, I appreciate, like, we're not perfect, and we all make mistakes. Like I am as guilty as everyone, for sure, as as anyone. Like things like that kind of really tear at what is really true, for me at least. And I will say one other thing, and I might get in trouble for this, and I apologize to the Americans out there for this, but like even the rise of Donald Trump, and I'm sorry, like just that has really, really shaken my faith, seeing like the evangelicals, and I will not call myself evangelical anymore because of this, but seeing the evangelicals now, I know not everyone, but there are a lot of evangelicals out there who's just followed along. And political, like if you're Republican, Democrat, whatever you are, that's fine, but just to see like the intertwined, or whatever it is, like that coming together of Donald Trump and the Christian evangelicals has really as well bothered me. And I will be very upfront, my parents are right into it. And I know a lot of my friends' parents who are Christians are right into it. They're just like, they're loving it. But like, I just see this man who says these crazy things that I do not believe are Christ-like. And I know we're not perfect, but still, like, just some of the things that I see and hear, and being Canada, we're not immune to it, obviously. Like I hear it's, it's very open here. It just, that has also really, and I apologize to those people that are MAGA followers, but I can't buy into it. It just does not seem, I don't know what the word is, logical to me that
I think there's a lot of people who feel betrayed by that.
Yeah, I really do. And it's really tough. Like again, my parents, who I respect tremendously, but they are right in there. They actually had a sticker on their car. It didn't last long because I think people got a little bit angry, but it said like Christians for Trump on their car. And we're in Canada. Like I don't even know why we're like supporting, I don't know, just crazy stuff. But it's a lot of my friends' parents are really like, I don't know if it's that generation, but I know it's younger people too, for sure. But at least in Canada, it's a lot of like people that I grew up with, their parents are really into this as well. And I just don't understand. And it really bothers me, to be honest. And that's kind of like one of those things, like I just can't be associated with. And I still, like, the church I go to is an evangelical church, but I just have a real hard time.
It just feels like it kind of adds to the you've used the word trauma, right? So like there's these like trauma moments, like the teachings about hell feels traumatic, and then there's this generation where there's this time frame now where you feel like things you were taught, like that's a serious teaching. Hell is a very serious teaching, and there's all these very serious teachings, and then you use the word, it doesn't seem logical because it just seems counter to what you were taught growing up. Like here's these important things, like, and I get it. Yep, nobody's perfect. I think you nailed it. Like that's absolutely true. But like it almost just feels like it's kind of building on that trauma. You end up at a church where the leader is living a double life, and it is hard for it not to erode this foundation that you have, because you're this very serious foundation, and then like it's hard to not look at it and be like, oh yeah, this pastor, double life, didn't really matter. These people who say they love Jesus, and I feel like they are following this man who is saying the opposite of that. And like it just, I think it's a very, very real experience to have this foundation and have this these things just kind of eaten at and eroded at, and where it does feel like it's just building trauma on top of trauma in a lot of ways.
And I would say too, Chris, like I'm in that same realm. My parents are big time Trump supporters, and it's hard to have a conversation, and it's really hard for me to watch the affection for Jesus being combined with the worship, I'll use that word very intentionally, of politics and the man Trump himself. And I don't think it's just us, dude. Like, I really worry, and I'm really intentional with my kid who is 14 going on 15. He just started high school. I'm really intentional about breaking those things apart because when he's our age, I don't want him looking back on this time and being like, I don't want to associate with the church ever again because they supported an adulterer and they supported this man who has all these things, and not just the man, but the party, the movement itself. And it's this dangerous contagion that I'm just really worried about. Not so much that my son would consume it and become a part of it. Yeah, I wouldn't like that very much, I guess. But more so, I'm worried that he's going to look back and say, I'm not taking you guys, I'm not taking Christianity seriously at all because you all are buying into this movement that is clearly anti-biblical. And it's not just Christians. It's a lot of non-Christians. I have a ton of non-Christian friends, and it is by far the one thing they make fun of the most and point to the most is the stark and drastic dichotomy between what people say they believe and what they are worshiping on the political side. And it's a really dangerous thing. So I'm with you, and you're not alone on that stuff. You said you're apologizing to an audience that's, I guess, been listening to us for a little while, and they kind of understand where we're at with that. But I think it's a legitimate frustration, because we're told when we're told our entire lives to live by those rules, like you said earlier, right? And we're told to not be part of the world, and all of a sudden it's a pastor or it's a political leader. I mean, heck, Trump's ex-spiritual advisor was sexually abusing a 12-year-old for years. Like, these things, like Caleb said, erode your faith, for lack of a better word, in the system that we are a part of. And what does it actually mean at the end of the day? It's okay to be confused and frustrated. That's where a lot of people are at, right? So, I mean, it's part of people's journeys. It sounds like it's part of yours. It's part of mine too. Sorry to rant. It's not my story, but just trying to identify with it a little bit,
No, I appreciate hearing Americans say that too. I've got a few friends who've moved to America, and they're Americans now, and they're very, very much in the same feeling as I am. But I don't know, like like you see these massive rallies and like even like the Charlie Kirk funeral, right? Like it's just, yeah, it just seems.
There's a hard combination of politics and faith that people rightfully mourn, but yeah, it's tough to watch.
No, absolutely, yeah, yeah, for sure.
I get excited at our church because I feel like my church is trying to. One of the campuses at my church is trying really hard to I think do the hard thing, because I think there's a lot of churches that are just kind of taking the easy way out now and are just saying, let's embrace it. Let's embrace the Republican Party, and you gotta vote Republican to be a Christian. And then there's churches who are, I think, trying hard to not do that, to say no, we shouldn't, there are people who go to this church who vote Republican. There's people who go to this church who vote Democrat, and we are all in this together. And that's a really hard thing to do. And so there are moments where I had one recently, and I won't go into the details, but I was walking into Sunday morning oh, I hope this is how this is communicated. And I was anxious. I was there was this tension, and my pastor handled it beautifully. And I was really excited. I was just oh, we didn't just say all the things that we didn't just go down talking points of one side. He really did just communicate, I think, what I would hope the heart of Jesus is about this topic, where it didn't slam either side of, and it just did it. And I was I shouldn't be this excited about it, because I think there's not a lot of churches doing that. There's not a lot of churches taking the hard road, because I bet you it makes people leave, because they want to show up, and they want, there's people who want to slam one side, and there's people who show up and want to slam the other side. And churches that are not doing that, I think they're brave, and it's probably hurting the numbers, to be totally frank.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think we have to learn how to have civil conversations, right? And I think that's one of the big issues now, and I think social media is just destroying that, where again you get into these streams, right? And you whatever side you're on, you're going to get fed that side of things, and and you're not learning how to have civil conversations. You're learning how just to pull in that side of the argument or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that I think you're right though, Caleb. I think like the church has got to be a place where we can have these open discussions, but again, right, like in love, like with at the heart of Jesus, I think is really important. But I just don't see it. Like when, I hear these sermons of like these pastors saying you better vote, if you vote Democrat, you are of the devil or whatever. It's just like, it's just that just stuff just again blows me away. Like,
yeah, and it's happening in quite a few places. Aside from like the politics stuff, can you identify like a certain aspect of the theology? Because charismatic's a slightly different tone than evangelical, but can you identify some of something that theologically you look back and is like, you know what, I approached that theological stance or teaching differently today?
yeah, I think one big thing is on like gay marriage and like same-sex relationships. I grew up, and I have a lot of good friends that I grew up with in the church who came out as gay, and I know they fought against that. Like they tried to quote unquote pray the gay away,
Mm-hmm.
and they really suffered because our church was very adamant that that was a sin. And because like growing up with having these personal, like some of my really good friends are gay, and just to see that and their struggles and what they
Mm-hmm.
went through because of some teachings, I can't believe that I don't know. That stuff to me is like I support that. Like I support
Mm-hmm.
same-sex marriage because of what I saw my friends suffer through as growing up in a Christian church like that, and just being very adamantly told that you are, whatever, like
Mm-hmm.
that's a sin. And so I think that's one big thing that's really changed. I also like I'm a lot more progressive, and I'm a lot more open to ideas. Again, I'm not being very specific here, so I
It's okay.
apologize. Maybe not really answering your question, but like I think I'm more open to like even like my wife is Jewish, and I've been to some like Jewish
Mm.
like funerals and ceremonies and stuff, and I think it's beautiful. Like some of this, like the
Interesting.
how they what's the word? Like just some of the like the ceremonial things they do, I think is really missing in what I grew up with, right? Like I was taught like it's a relationship, not a religion, but I still think like some ceremonies, and it kind of draws me towards like the Catholicism or Anglican, like where they have a little bit more of those like where it's a little bit more ceremonial. I don't know if that's a word, but there's something beautiful in there that I think I missed,
Mm-hmm.
that I didn't have like growing up in a charismatic slash evangelical church, right? Where again, it was all about like, it wasn't about that at all, right? Like, I mean, we did the Lord's Supper and things like that. Like, that was kind of one of those things that we did, but still, like, I would like to see more of that. Like, even I went to Europe this summer, and walking into some of those churches, like those Catholic churches, just beautiful,
Mm-hmm.
beautiful buildings. And I don't know if it was a spiritual experience, but it definitely like hit me. You know what I mean? Like, and work like there's something there.
I was going to say that's an interesting one to bring up because, kind of alluding back to our comment way earlier, about how we were in the right and everyone else was in the wrong. The term that comes to my mind is reverence, right? I married a pretty Lutheran girl who was very steeped in not just like Missouri Synod, but like the like old school traditional Lutheran liturgy stuff. And as I started going to her church, it was not in my wheelhouse. It was out of my comfort zone. But like, there is some of that like awe and inspiring reverence that you kind of miss with the "come as you are" message. Now, the "come as you are" message is extremely important, right? You don't want people coming into a church or the group setting thinking they have to perform a certain way. But the people who built and worship in those churches for not hundreds, thousands of years, it wasn't all for naught. Like, they were doing their best to pursue God, and it's not our place to say whether they were Christians or not, even though an evangelical model would technically say they weren't. And so, like, there's something awe-inspiring and reverential about a huge cathedral, right? Or some of the liturgical stuff that other faiths go through that it's just not part of the evangelical mindset, and it's fine. It's just different. So good on you for being open to those experiences too, because I really do think that helps shape people in their faith. Looking back on your youth group experience itself, maybe not theologically, but just like the whole youth group experience, is there anything that you struggle with? Was there anything you look back on, you're like, I shouldn't have done that, or maybe as a group we shouldn't have been doing these things? Running people over with trucks notwithstanding, is there something that comes to mind when you think of your youth group experience that you might change?
I think like I'll go back to what I said a while ago is like, so in high school, like again, high school, I was very introverted. The youth group, I was quite the opposite. And I was more like, and I hate to say this, but I was kind of in like the popular, like the popular kids in the youth group, just terrible to say. And I didn't treat some people very well. And I do regret that. And I, like one of my friends who moved to America, I've apologized to him. I'm like, I was a teenager, but still like that was just definitely not showing Christ's love for sure. And just being just a jerk, I think. Anyways, so I think I could have treated people better. Again, I was a teenager, but still not a good excuse. I also think like, again, some of these services that I went to and like kind of the forcing of like, this is out of my control, but like the forcing of like speaking in tongues and like, I don't know, like maybe I did. I don't think I did though. I think I just made up stuff just to appease people. I just don't. Yeah, like that stuff again I think there was too much of it. And I think we should have been focusing more on, and maybe I'm more of an intellectual, but more of like, I don't know, like more deep stuff than just like, all right, let's go to the front and let's pray for each other and let's speak in tongues. And, and I understand the purpose of it, but at the same time, like if they had taught me more like, again, I don't know, intellectual or more applicable things, I think it would have been more beneficial to me, but that's just maybe my opinion. So
sure.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people who want deeper theology, who want better, teachings. It's hard to do sometimes in a youth group setting, right? You're trying to have fun, you're trying to install some, belief systems and that sort of thing, but also too,
yeah,
a lot of youth groups had different subgroups of whether it was popular kids or leadership kids, and it's like that's where you want to go deeper, and sometimes people didn't get that.
Yeah, and again, like I think because of the denomination I grew up with and what their emphasis was, like this is what we did, right? As a denomination, which I would never send my kids there. Even like I wouldn't even send the kids to the camp I went to because of that. I don't think it was good for me. I think it was emphasizing the wrong things. I mean, I had a blast, as I talked about, like just a blast, but at the same time, like I think you can do that and perhaps have a different conversation
for sure,
or different yeah,
for sure,
different emphasis maybe.
Yeah. We talked about wanting things more intellectual and wanting to learn more. As you've grown older and your faith has matured, is there a book, is there like a teacher, pastor maybe, that's been important to you in your faith as you've gotten older, maybe wanting more of the intellectual aspect of it?
Yeah, to be honest, like that one pastor that was having an affair and has been accused of terrible things, like I really respected him before all that happened, and that was kind of a blow, as we talked about that. I've also like one of my campus ministers growing up, it's okay to say his name, I hope. Is that Yeah, Peter Sherman. He's actually like a professor at a university now and wrote a book called Blessed Are the Undone. And it's about like Christians deconstructing, and very, very good book. If I could just, it's hard to find, I think, probably especially in America. But anyways, Blessed Are the Undone. And it's just a really good book about like why Christians are deconstructing and what are the things offered to them. Just a really good book. I haven't really talked to him, but I like some of my university friends, one of them had that book, and I had to get it. And really good book. Really enjoyed it. Peter Sherman, Blessed Are the Undone. Yeah, another one. I really enjoy podcasts. I'm on this one, which is awesome. I really enjoy Dan Koch. I don't know if you guys have heard of him. Yeah, like it used to be called
Permission, right?
You Have Permission, yeah. And I liked how he had like a variety, like he has a variety of guests on, and and he does talk a lot about religious trauma, and I can kind of relate to that too. So I do appreciate that, and that's meant a lot to me. I've never met him or talked to him, but again, kind of just that one way conversation has been helpful to me. I listen to a ton of podcasts. I also, yeah,
Mhm.
I'll stop there, but I think like those things have been useful to me and kind of growing in what I've believe and things like that.
Yeah, Dan Koch's podcast is really good. It's one that I wish I prioritized more, because every time I listen to him, like, this dude is really well spoken and really, he's not aggressive. He doesn't shame people or anything like that. He's just really well thought out and warm to everybody who's on. And he does have a variety of guests, and to a certain extent, too, Peter Enns and the Bible for Normal People does that for me. Although Peter Enns can kind of rub people the wrong way, because he's kind of sounds like he's full of himself when he's really not, that sort of thing. But he's an intellectual that kind of explains things really well too. So
Yeah,
there's a lot out there.
I enjoy that, like the intellectual and getting really deep into things. That kind of gets me going. Kind of the opposite of what I was growing up with, I find. So yeah.
Interesting.
Blessed Are the Undone is readily available on Amazon here in the United States. Totally orderable.
Awesome.
So.
Sweet.
Yeah, I would recommend it. It's a good read, and it's very interesting especially for people like, I don't know, for myself was really good.
I love that answer to that question, because it's another one to add to the list, and why not? People should be reading that kind of stuff. I've come to the part of the show where my favorite questions come up. What would your 18-year-old self say to your mid-40s self, and what would your mid-40s self say to your 18-year-old self now?
For sure, for what I would tell myself, what I'd say to my 18-year-old self is, don't worry, it all worked out. I don't know, like I had such, like, kind of moving from like anxiety of hell to like anxiety of the future. It all, like, I don't know, like things worked out. I got a job, I got married, I have children, like things that I was always a little bit worried about growing, like in my teenage years, like how am I ever going to get a job? How am I, all this stuff, these kind of like these thoughts come into your mind. And I would tell myself, just enjoy it. Like, again, I miss my teenage years to some extent. I don't, but to some extent I do, like just the freedom I had, and, just enjoy that, and don't take things so seriously, I think I would tell myself. I don't know, my 18-year-old self would tell me. That was a tough one. I saw that question. I'm like, what would my 18-year-old self tell me right now? I think my 18-year-old self would just like, like you've done it. You did it. Like you were, you're successful. You enjoy what you do. You have great kids. You've got an awesome wife, and just enjoy that, and don't take it for granted. I think is really important for me. Like, be thankful for what you have, and because
That's great, because that's a message everybody should hear all the time, every day, is don't take stuff for granted.
I like how your 18-year-old self would basically just give you a high five and be like, yes.
Like, you did it.
All right.
Now, my life isn't perfect by any stretch, but at the same time, like, like things that I worried about growing up did not come to fruition. I'm happy about that.
Sure.
Yeah.
We also like to ask how you mentioned MXPX, so that was definitely the music had infiltrated into Canada. How
There's
much
just
was
a
that
wall.
music?
It just didn't get up there. It's like it just bounced off.
Yep. How did the CCM scene or the Christian music scene kind of influence that time of your life, and is it still part of your life today?
I'm really excited for this question. I love music. I love, and honestly, like, we were tooth and nail kids.
Sweet.
They may never have came up to Canada, but man, we listened to that, and like anytime we found an album, we would buy it. I remember one time MXPX, 90 Pound Wuss, and Value Pack, although I don't think Value Pack got past the border. They came up to Collingwood, which is about an hour and a half from me, and some of my friends went, and I was so jealous.
Oh, dude.
Because like we never got concerts up here, like concerts like that, right? Like tooth and nail concerts. But just, oh man, we just like so in my youth group there were cliques. but one of those clicks was music, and like I was on the Tooth and Nail side 100%
Nice.
all the way, and then there were people on the CCM side. I'll call it CCM,
Yep.
which is like I don't know, like Audio Adrenaline and all that stuff, and Newsboys and DC Talk and stuff. And we were, I don't want to say like we weren't. There was always a little bit of tension that way, right? Where we were like, this is good music that's like overproduced, and I was for some reason against the keyboard. I'm like, they have keyboards in their music. I don't care anymore, obviously, but like I just was like, no. Yeah, I honestly, that was one of the amazing, like that's one of the highlights of like listening to that music. And like, and I still honestly listen to a lot of it to this day. Like I still listen to a lot of that teenage music. Love it. I A lot of bands have come through, and I love the nostalgia. Like the Get Up Kids last year came through, and they did a concert of their, what's the album, Something to Write Home About. They did like front to back. Amazing. Love that. I got to see, MXPX did eventually come to Canada because they got that big. And then one of the opening bands was the Get Up Kids, and I fell in love with the Get Up Kids as well, which isn't really CCM, but I'll mention them anyways. And yeah, I love music. I still listen to a lot of it. Like, and this led me to going to Cornerstone a few years. Loved it. Cornerstone was amazing. We used to take like a couple car loads from Canada down there, and we just could not believe it because we never got those bands up here, right? Like on the rare occasion, especially in high school, like none of those bands came up here. I remember once the Prayer Chain came up, they played on a Sunday night, and so yeah, it was a real controversy up here. But for some reason, my dad's like, you know what, you should go, even though my parents were like, church twice a day. Anyways, one of my friends who was the biggest Prayer Chain fan, he was a youth leader at that time and went to talk to the pastor about it. And the pastor said, "Oh, no, you should be going to church, not a concert." Oh, but anyway, so he didn't go, but like we went and we saw the Prayer Chain, and I think it was, the Throws, I think. Anyways, and that was like we never got bands like that up in Canada, but we did go see them in this like small club on a Sunday night. I'll never forget it.
Yeah.
And seeing like a band like that, right? It was just blew me away. And seeing MXPX come up here, like I remember it was my first year in university, and MXPX finally came up here in this small club in Toronto called El Macombo, which is a pretty famous club, but really small. And I remember like my friends from all over the province came because, again, we all love like MXPX and Tooth and Nail, and like it was just the best. Like we were like crowd surfing, and like I like probably like 20-30 friends there, and just amazing.
Total
just
party.
And yeah. It was, and it was just right after, I think it was just after Life in General came out, maybe a year after Life in General came out, and it was just the best. I don't know. I love music. I still love Tooth and Nail, but I'm really old school Tooth and Nail. Like I kind of stopped at the late 90s, but I still listen to a lot of that stuff this day. Like Stavesacre, love Stavesacre.
Oh yeah.
Stretch Armstrong. Man, like
That's
that. I saw them at Cornerstone twice, and those will still be my two favorite concerts I ever went to.
Nice.
Stretch Armstrong put on such a good show at Cornerstone, just blew me away. I don't know, like I still like music, and I still listen to some newer bands, but I still I always will have a soft spot, and like that is something growing up that I just loved. I loved music, and I listen to podcasts now, like The Rumors Are True. I don't know if you've heard of that one. But yeah, it's a great, it's a good because he always has like these really good guests on, and I really enjoy hearing about these bands in like the 90s and early 2000s. And like my dream was like to work for Tooth and Nail, but or be in a band, knowing what they went through, right? They made no money whatsoever, and it was not a livable, like they didn't have livable wages, but it just seemed like the best. So I've got one more thing. Sorry. My friends, I met a guy at this camp that I went to, from Israel actually. And, he started a band, and their band name was Man Alive. They actually got signed to Militia Records a long time ago. And anyways, I didn't really tour with him, but I got to like go to a few of his concerts, and he actually played Cornerstone. He got me into Cornerstone, I think 2 years for free, because I was one of his roadies. But just amazing that I kind of had that one kind of small kind of step into that world of like he toured all over the States with this band. And anyways, just we're still friends to this day, and he's still making music, but I don't know. Yeah, it's just some really good memories going to Cornerstone and like getting involved, like going to see Five Iron Frenzy in Detroit because they wouldn't cross the border, but that was fine. Just, you know what I mean? Like just going to as many concerts, seeing Pedro the Lion in Detroit as well, right? Like just seeing like all these Christian or once was, you know what I mean? Like these bands that I just loved, and I still listen to them this day.
Well,
just memories.
I'm going to plug Caleb's podcast because if you haven't heard it, it's pretty great. It's called the Album Anniversary Podcast, and I'm a frequent guest, and we talk about these things. But
it's
yeah,
funny,
the CC.
You keep on listing off like bands, and I'm like, we've covered them. Like we covered the Prayer Chain. Yeah, we've covered Pedro the Lion. We've covered Five Iron because that's my obsession. I mean, I've got problems. Center Square, Five Iron got mentioned. You know, so I got a podcast for you to steal the Veggie Tales.
I will definitely. I honestly, I haven't listened to it, but I have heard of it, and I will definitely give it a listen, especially the albums that I really love, and I know that you've done a lot of them, so I will give it a listen for sure.
Chris, I'm gonna mute Caleb for a bit. It's not that good, but. No, as a little caveat, this popped in my brain, so I'll just say it. I can't remember where I heard about recently, but the CCM culture, specifically the tooth and nail culture, and then what came out of it, you know, allowing Christian kids to be punk rock, and you know, we all kind of had that. You shared that experience of a pastor not allowing a huge Prayer Chain, not allowing, but guilting a Prayer Chain fan to not go to the concert, kind of thing. It gave us, as Christian kids, a space to feel like we were rebellious, right? I remember constantly, not arguing, but like trying to defend our musical tastes to our adult volunteer leaders, right? Like whether it was at our festivals or somewhere else, like, why do you like this? This is crap. It's like, no, this MXPX is great. We had a great time at the show. And it just gave us a space to feel like we were rebelling, but really, we are just still part of the culture, just a subset. We didn't really even know it, and we never really escaped the evangelical culture. Besides it, it was just like, hey, we can still feel like, oh, we got our own thing, which we did. And you know, you are part of the stage when it was still kind of original and raw and not produced or heavily marketed to make money for the people on the top of the record company, that sort of thing. And there's some real true nostalgia about that time.
I think that's really, really well put. Kind of finding that group, right? That set of people, for sure. And I like how you put rebellious, because it was, but it wasn't.
Right.
You know, but like finding those people that, and honestly, like if you just say the word, like say a band that I like especially like a Tooth and Nail band, and I don't know you, I will talk to you for a good amount of time and like, and just find out what you're interested in, like who you've seen, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, there's such a connection there, I find, like, because there were more before, but like, I don't know, I really got heavily into music, and I still, a lot, again, as I said, a lot of those bands I still look for to this day.
Yeah. Really formative memories for sure.
I got the new Stavesacre vinyl today. I mean,
I saw that.
Which is that the one they re-engineered?
Yeah, the self-titled.
The one on that
everybody hates. Yeah. Everybody hates the production on it, and I always listen to it, and I'm like, I don't know. I mean, yeah, maybe it's a little rough. It sounds fun to me, and everybody's like, "You're a moron." Yeah, fair enough.
Caleb, I totally agree with you. I like that album. Yeah. I don't know. I'm not a musical guy though. Like I don't have that musical ear or whatever. But I like what I like, and I liked it. I thought it was pretty good. Yeah. So they released it on vinyl. They put it back. They put it streaming.
Yeah.
Too, right? Did they the re-engineered one?
And you can get it's like it's called out like remastered 2025, and it's got a cover of Paint It Black at the end, which is really, 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 really good, actually. I hadn't listened to the streaming one because I just kept on listening to my copy of it. And then when I got the vinyl, I listened today and I was like, it got done. I'm like, oh, that's fun. I'm like, oh, wait, there's more. Oh, there's really more. Oh, it's really good. So yeah, it's a fun listen. So
nice. Yeah, that's one band that not many of my friends were into, but I always loved Stavesacre. Yeah.
Well, say, man, you've spent a lot of time with us tonight. I just want to end the conversation here just with a general question. How do you think 90s Youth Group contributes to the person you are today?
I think like again, the friendships are lasting. Like I still usually every summer I go on a nice like a canoe trip with some like youth group friends that I've had since I
Mm.
was like 16, 15, even some younger that I grew up with in the church. And I think that's really real. I really am thankful for that, that I have friends like that. That like I play baseball once a week. Well, when it's nice out, I play baseball once a week with another guy that I went to like grew up with in the youth group as well. And we still have like that's not the bond, right? So I think one of the things that really stick with me are those bonds. And I talk to like I've got two friends in America who I still like in constant contact with, and like I think our faith is kind of both evolved. Um, and it's nice to have people to talk to who are like that.
Hmm.
So I think like just the friendships for sure. Some of the beliefs are still there for sure.
Hmm.
I little less black and white now though, a little bit more in the gray area. I think like growing up, yeah, what you believe is true, and what are things that are important to you. So
Hmm.
yeah, it's very general. I didn't really answer it that well, but yeah, I think the biggest thing is just friendship, community, and like knowing how to treat other people too, right? Like recognizing that I definitely was kind of a jerk at some points to some people, and that I don't want to be like that.
Hmm.
That's not who I am. And yeah,
Hmm.
so I don't really have a great spiritual answer for you. I'm sorry, but that's kind of what I think I really pulled out. Yeah, from my youth group and like growing up.
Well, we're
Yeah.
gonna can this entire thing because of that answer, Chris. No, just kidding. It was great. It was great. It's a real honest answer, right? Like it doesn't need to have a direct like A to B impact. It just can generally push you in the direction you're at today.
Yeah. And I think we hear that over and over
Yeah.
again. Like it's not necessarily spiritual things that have stuck with people. It is those relationships, or even people are like, "Oh,
Hmm.
I'm still overwhelmed by how much a youth leader poured into me, and they took all this
Hmm.
time." Like it's something that so I think those sorts of things sometimes are the things that stick with us even more than like a Bible lesson or a sermon or something like that
Yep.
that we heard. It's the other things that are the things that are the standout things. So I think that's totally legit that it's those friendships that's what lasts and still makes you fond of those memories.
Well, Chris, thanks for spending time with us. Really enjoy it. Really enjoy getting to know you and chat with you a bit. I feel like I could chat more because you just mentioned canoeing. I love canoe trips and baseball. Go Jays. And all this music stuff. So it's like maybe we'll have a round two here pretty soon. But we really appreciate you jumping on and taking the time to talk about your life in a very honest and vulnerable way. It's really, really helpful to us to hear your story. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you having me, and yeah, and sharing it, and yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks for listening to this episode of I Survived Youth Group in the 90s. We hope you enjoyed it. Once again, we do want to say thanks to Chris for taking time to talk with us about his youth group experience or his youth experience in Canada. It was super exciting to talk to him. Let us know what you thought about this or any of our other shows. You can find us on Twitter at the handle @SurvivedYG, although I'll be totally honest, I don't think we've used it in quite a while. You can also email the show at isurvivedyouthgroup@gmail.com. Please subscribe, share the podcast. If you're so inclined, leave a rating or review. If you enjoy the show, you might also enjoy the other podcast I work on. It's called the Album Anniversary Podcast, and we just celebrate music. We take a look at an album, we dissect it, talk about why it's important to us. Once again, that's called the Album Anniversary Podcast. Thanks again, and we'll talk to you soon.